Bam! MC is in the house. What's going on, folks? My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. Every Wednesday, we're doing this at noon Eastern Standard Time. I am doing this on YouTube, on the TRIBALNOMICS page. I'm also doing it on the Master Chim Facebook page, along with my personal page on Facebook, the Justin Garcia page. So appreciate you guys joining. And what's going on here? All right, Johnny Groove, what's going on, brother man? What's up, Jesse? As you guys are jumping on, do me a favor, give a shout, give me a like wherever you're watching. Number one, you know it's the game we're playing. Number two, it also lets me know that everybody can see me and hear me, which is always an issue. So before we get into what's going on, what's up, Corey? Daryl, what's going on, my man? Good to see you, brother. What's up, Juan? Good to see you, my friend. All right, so a little housekeeping. MasterChim.com. Go there, put your email in, and get on my email newsletter. It's free. I send it out every day. What's up, Angel? What's up, Juan? The other Juan. I write it every day. I send it out. And anything that's going on with me is usually there. I do not make money doing these videos, but I'd be lying if I said I don't find a way to make connections through these videos that eventually leads to people forming some sort of alliance with me where I make money. So whereas I am certainly not somebody that's looking to get paid on YouTube, I just don't think that's in the cards. I'm not willing to do what's necessary. And that's even assuming that, you know, I got what it takes to succeed on YouTube these days to begin with. Not sure that it would even be something that I like. But I do make these videos because I get a lot of positive feedback. And it's also a great platform for me to be creative, you know, and just articulate certain topics in this sort of free flow sort of format where usually it would have to be, you know, filtered through either an email or an article or one of my video programs. So I enjoy this format. So Yarn Saxo, what is up? Good to see you. All right. One says kids are looking like savages. Oh man, the kids are doing great. The kids are doing great. They are crushing it. I don't know if you guys know, but this is my home office here, and I converted it to a jiu-jitsu room. So everything's matted now. I'm not going to screw up the shot too much by, you know, a little grappling dummy over there, mats. And we've been having a good time. You know, they're at that point in their development where it's time to start doing jiu-jitsu pretty regularly with daddy. And I very consciously did not do that up until this point. But right now, the chemistry and the timing are right for it. And we're having a great time doing it. Thank you, Juan. Ryan, what's up? My man up in Canada. Good to see you, brother. All right, so let's get into it, and I'll certainly be asking questions. What's up, Wade? Certainly be answering questions, I should say, later on. Some related to this. Towards the end, if I got some free time, you got some other questions to ask, I'll certainly hit those too. But today I wanted to talk about mothers who ruin kids, and the topic is atypical because I don't always check women, you know, on their shit, right? It's not something that I'm usually even interested in. It's sort of not my job, and obviously it's, you know, given the topic of today's talk, it's not that I don't have anything to offer and I don't have anything to, you know, to say in terms of criticism or offer in terms of formulas, but it's just not what I do. But it is something that I need to sort of address, I would say, because there's so much overlap with some of the issues that men are now experiencing. And if I could throw out some information that somebody benefits from, I think it's worthwhile. Now, a lot of these concepts, you know, they sort of appear in different ways, in different disciplines and different sources. But the idea of like dysfunctional motherhood, everyone from, you know, therapists to psychologists in history, young This idea of this dysfunctional mother. There's a lot of different slants on what that looks like. And, going through the tribalnomics lens, I wanted to stick to the formulas that I'm used to articulating things through and with, and see where that fits in the grand scheme of things of what I advocate for as to the blueprint for a man designing the most powerful life, he can design. So, all that being said, I would say that there's two main types of dysfunctional mothers that I see and that I'd want to address. And the first type is the type that is tyrannical. And this is more, I would leave this more realistically to the psychologists. I would talk to the men about mothers like this when they finally, reach engaging with me on any issues that stemmed from this point in their life. But the first classification of dysfunctional mother is this mother that sees the child as the entire embodiment of their purpose, and not only sees it completely in the child, but often sees it in a particular stage of development of the child, whereby they want the child to sort of stay a certain way. They want to preserve the dynamic of I am the nurturer, protector to a certain extent when the child is young, and they want to preserve that dynamic. And in the interim, what they wind up doing is they wind up becoming tyrants through that dynamic. And in tribalnomics, we describe or define a tyrant as an individual who negates or ignores the identity of the person they're being tyrannical toward. So inherent in that is this, or inherent in this dynamic with the mother, this first classification of dysfunctional mother I'm addressing, you have this idea of who the child is as an individual doesn't matter. It's a baby, it's a child, and it needs to be mothered. And that dynamic, the mother is going to become a tyrant in order to protect. So what you'll find in those situations is, and I've said tyrants create traitors, right? It's one of the telltale signs of a tyrannical dynamic between two people. One of them is a traitor. Now, how that happens is, and you'll see this in young men specifically, because I'm talking about boys here, like young ladies. I have a daughter, so it's not like I'm not speaking from any sort of experience. But again, not my mission, as being the guy who's putting stuff out there. But young boys specifically, when they have these tyrannical mothers, you'll see them either be dysfunctionally masculine or effeminate almost, or you get the hypermasculine type. And what those two categories of sort of, after effect or product of this dysfunctional relationship with their tyrannical mother, what it represents is that same tyrant traitor dynamic. So the tyrant makes traitors because either the person who is being treated tyrannically betrays the tyrant by going against the dynamic, misrepresenting themselves till eventually breaking off the alliance completely, or they betray themselves. So when the young boy has the tyrannical mother, any tendency or drive towards a archetypal process that is masculine, he winds up betraying, and that's where you get this effeminate identity or effeminate set of formulas that young men have that winds up defining who they are as they get older. So you still see that traitor dynamic with the tyrannical mother. The hypermasculine son is the one that basically fights against it and just rebels and winds up being the antithesis of what the mother is trying to make the child turn into. So in that first category of dysfunctional mother, the tyrant mother, you'll see them create those traitors, right? And that's something, again, there's so much content and there's so much addressed with that specifically that I'm not the guy to put myself out there as the guy who's going to somehow alleviate that issue, right? The effeminate men, it's like, yeah, we could work on, readdressing or reacquiring some of the rituals or ways that the selfing rituals that an individual, an effeminate man, learns how to be himself that is a little bit more overlap with a functional level of masculinity. That's a process, but it's not an easy process. It's not a short process. And I'll be damned if I've ever seen somebody who's gone from a very effeminate male to somebody who would be considered a masculine male without some sort of facade or misrepresentation of who they are, right? So I think I'm still on. Somebody let me know. All right, I think I'm back. All right, I don't know. This thing fizzled out. So the tyrant mother is somebody who has issues, and she's got woman issues, and the issues, it's just not what I do. I deal with the men afterwards, the after effects. The effeminate man, like I said, it's very hard for him to develop selfing rituals that allow him to go from effeminate in the eyes of other men to what would be considered functionally masculine in terms of their identity. However, the hypermasculine, what we wind up seeing is a tendency towards validating that level of functional masculinity. And with that hypermasculinity, these are the people that they know they're not going, they don't want to be effeminate. They don't want to underdevelop the relationship with the masculine aspect of who they are. So they overcompensate, and then they wind up basically overdoing it. They become dysfunctionally, masculine past a point of being able to be respected by other, functionally masculine men, right? So these hyper masculine individuals, they wind up losing the ability to maintain the balance that a functional masculine man can achieve and maintain in a functional, traditional, natural life, right? So the hyper masculine, yeah, they have to learn how to sort of tone it down a bit. But they're still identifying themselves not as men. And this is I think, an important point and a valuable point. Hypermasculine men don't define themselves as being very, very masculine. They define themselves and look to further define themselves as anti-feminine, right? So when you are anti-feminine, you're really trying to sort of paint a picture of something or portrait of something based on that thing's shadow, right? So there's always going to be some offset. So the hypermasculine male defines himself as not feminine, I'm not a woman, I am not feminine. And they tend to just go to the antithesis or the opposite of whatever attributes they see. And obviously the problem with that is there are traits and formulas that men and women have in common, that they share. So we could see how somebody who is anti-woman loses any of that nuance, any of that gray area of overlap between how men act and how women act in particular ways, right? So it is it's something that, again, like I said, a tyrannical mother, we know these tyrannical mothers, these overprotective mothers that baby their children, that don't let their children do anything, that don't allow their children to develop a relationship with the outside world through a functional level of interaction, right? Ironically, it's the role of the dad. It's the role of the dad to sort of get into that dynamic at some point and sort of pull the child away from that protective energy and presence of the mother and introduce the child to the outside world. The father, after all, is the one in the home that goes out to encounter the world and comes back in. So he inherently is the representative of that relationship, that connection to being outside of that home unit, of which the mother, is the leader of, the home itself. So I hope these dynamics are making sense as I'm describing them, right? So really quick, what's up, Wade? Brian Wilton. He doesn't know what dragons to slay, why he's consumed with resentment towards his mother. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Oh, Phil said I never left. Good, I'm glad. Samantha, just so you guys know, this is my hot Brazilian wife. She's in Brazil right now, checking me out because I got it like that. Brian says you can tell the people they love by the hunted look on their faces. All right, so getting to now the second class or category of dysfunctional mother. It's the mother who looks to not protect the child in terms of maintaining that that nurturer baby sort of dynamic, but it's the mother that assigns no worth, value, and therefore function in connecting a young boy to masculine models. All right, so the masculine models are only observed by women, right? They are not, there is a superficial relationship when it comes to masculine models through the eyes of women. And you'll see that in cross-dressers, right? The trannies who want to, the women who want to be men. What they'll do is they'll represent themselves superficially to look more like a man, to sound more like a man. The hormone therapy, you will even smell more like a man. But men will know that you are not a man. And they'll know you are not a man in a way and at a level that cannot be reduced to some sort of formula that can be transferred. It's like, hey, this is what you need to do to be a man. Now, I think worth mentioning, when you are mimicking an identity, you will only ever have to become effective enough at mimicking that identity that you are able to transcend the people who you are exposed to, their ability to track what your identity is, right? So if you have somebody, and this is where the cycle now you see take over in society, if you have somebody who has lost, even men who are effeminate, dysfunctional men who have lost track with what are the formulas, the models of masculinity, and they have some other superficial, understanding of what that is, usually given to them, by some outside source. You can fool these people because they have such a low level of awareness when it comes to masculinity that it's like, it's almost like, masculine enough. I guess it's a man. And I think that is at the heart of a lot of people who argue the validity of this notion that a man, that a woman could be a man, and vice versa. It's really, it's like, well, yeah, by your criteria, but not by the natural one. And the natural one transcends all of these facades and mimicries. So I think when you look at the woman who wants to now, the second class of dysfunctional mother, she believes that the son should be masculine, but she wants to define it according to her terms. And usually those terms are overly, surprise, are usually dysfunctionally effeminate. So a couple of things. Number one, No Name, what's up, my man? One of the things you'll see is this idea of or this practice. You'll see it on social media where women are having their sons play with girls' toys. Girls' toys. Some of them will even allow their sons to sort of dress in dresses or dress in some sort of androgynous unisex type of whatever non-conforming. I don't know all the latest words to describe it. And what they'll say is, well, a man shouldn't be, his masculinity shouldn't be threatened, by playing with girls' toys or by dressing, in a way that's not traditionally masculine. And, the easy answer or the easy response to her is, how the fuck do you know? Like, a real man wouldn't have his masculinity threatened. Like, how the fuck do you know? When the fuck did somebody give you the fucking playbook on what it means to be a man? Right? So, we have to understand, and this is something that a lot of people, the women who feel this way and the men who support women who feel this way, this is what a lot of them refuse to accept. It's like, you don't fucking know. And I've explained to my sons before, the idea of what it means to be a man and masculine is getting the approval of respectable masculine men. Having respectable masculine men approve of you and respect you is an indication that you are developing along a functional path where masculinity is concerned. Now, I understand some of these people will say, well, that's a circular type of formula. Like you're saying, so being masculine is getting the approval of somebody who's masculine. Well, what's the definition of it? And I would say that's exactly right. It is circular because it's not something we should ever try to reduce to some sort of transferable set of rituals or behaviors or even thought patterns or models. It's like, no, it transcends all of that. How do we know what a masculine man is? Well, we look at functional, traditionally formulated, men who are thriving, who achieve balance. And thriving that isn't, necessarily financial. It isn't, any one aspect or application of what it means to be successful. It's really this idea of balance. It's the idea of we took, what's a successful man? It's if we took 1,000 of them and put them on and I don't know the math with genetics, but just go with the flow. If I took 1,000 of these men and put them on a planet, you come back, there's a functional society, and when you look at that, how do we describe everything that would be included in that type of experiment? It is a functionally balanced because it's hard to describe it without considering, well, what is the feminine then? And therein lies the dynamic, the yin yang, the dance, the movement, between those two genders. So getting back to the dysfunctional woman who is trying to basically create a superficial understanding of what a man is to be, whereas the first instance we can call the tyrannical mother. The second category we call the puppet master, because the puppet master tries to tell the child what it means to be a man, and then engages that child, that young boy, into doing it along the lines of criteria that they themselves, the women, established. So you'll see that in those situations there aren't any men involved. Now, the men could be present. That's why I use the word involved. They're there, but they are not doing their job. There's a certain point where it's like if you wind up watching a kid hold his breath, right? I'll just make this analogy. Kid holds his breath. I'm going to hold my breath and see how long I can hold my breath. Okay, kid holds his breath, is in the pool, goes under the water. There's a certain point where you're like, okay, get out of there. Like, too long. It's too long. Well, similarly, when you have children, there's a certain point where, as a father who is involved and who is participating in his job, he sees that, okay, I need to now start changing these formulas because there's a transition that needs to occur, right? So the puppet master, the dysfunctional women who ruin their sons through this mimicry, they constantly then define not only who their son's supposed to be in terms of being, a young man and a budding man, but then that becomes part of their identity. So then any criticism or change of that dynamic, they take as a personal attack. And that's the issue. Now, I will say, in both of these instances, you will find either weak men involved, if there are any men there at all. It is very hard for a woman to go down either of these dysfunctional paths when it comes to raising sons while being in a relationship with a functionally masculine man, right? So those are the two dysfunctional women or dysfunctional mother models, right? We have the tyrant mother and we have the puppet master. The tyrant wants the child to remain a child, defines herself and her identity as being the nurturer and protector of this baby. and they will do everything in their power to keep the son disconnected from the real world, lest formulas be developed in that interaction. Okay. The second archetype is the puppet master. They understand at a superficial level what it is to be a man. They will customize the interpretation of that observation when modeling or instilling an identity in the practice of what the son is going to partake in as they become a man. So in those situations, you're not necessarily going to see an effeminate man. You might not even see a hyper-masculine man. You probably won't see a hyper-masculine man. But what you will get is a dysfunctional man. You'll get a man that doesn't really assign a lot of value to the differences between men and women, as if they're interchangeable, because the puppet master mothers often see that view the same. You know, you're a man, you're going to be strong, I guess. You know, you're going to be confident. And it's going to be this whole list of attributes that certainly apply to men and women, but the way they apply to men is a nuance that the mother's never going to get. So at the puppet master, you'll see somebody, they're not necessarily effeminate, nor are they hyper masculine, but they just wind up being somebody who doesn't understand the difference between the two of them. You know, when you're a man, I don't want to be, too archaic or interpreted as being sexist here, but I do not believe that men could be functional friends with women, while preserving relationships or marriages outside of their friendship. I think there's a certain point where the sexual dynamic is going to be present. But I will gladly say and admit, concede even, that this is amongst functional men and functional women. When you have one of these puppets, right? These boys that turn into men raised by the puppet master mother, I would speculate that they may be the first archetype to be able to pull it off, because there is literally no drive towards creating what amounts to the path of a functional natural man, finding a woman, building a family, trying to basically propagate and grow as an individual within the framework of this tribe of people, that you participated in growing. And, the idea of being connected to everything that was before you and having the thought then that I'm sort of expected to continue this moving forward. Like, all of these dynamics are left or not developed in the puppet, the son of the puppet master. So what they're doing is they're doing whatever they've been doing in society that they were told to do. Like, they're going to follow the norms. They're going to have all of the cool bumper stickers. They're going to put the funny. They're going to make the funny video that everybody's making during this particular holiday, or like they're going to participate in all the games because that is how they define their mission. Right? They don't have something they're connected to that transcends that. And they're the people that, are often atheists. They're not connected to any transcendent values or energies or relationships. And because of that, they succumb to the persuasions of everything that's in front of them. They're not anchored to anything beyond the sometimes, unreliability of their own identity. People are emotional creatures. I remember it was in my book when I was locked up at 16 years old. It's like I was in there going, I didn't think I would wind up here. I didn't ever think I would wind up locked up, but every single time I did what I did, although I thought there was no way because if you told me anything that I had done that led me to being locked up, if you stopped me right before and said, hey, if you do this, you're going to get locked up. Do you still want to do it? I would have went, hell fucking no. Right. But I didn't have the formulas. I couldn't trust myself. So I had to start developing these frameworks, models, and formulas to sort of operate, because I knew I couldn't always trust my state to make the functional decision, right? The moral decision, the decision that was most overlapped with my mission, right? So I hope that makes sense. All right. Jack Donovan, for all his faults, I think he really has just one fault that maybe leads to all the others. Had a crack. I see what you did there. Defining it as, I don't know if you did it there, but you did it anyway. Strength, honor, mastery, and loyalty. I think Jack called those his tactical virtues. And here's the thing. And again, I'm not going to badmouth Jack Donovan. But Jack Donovan's a gay man. Jack Donovan wants to have sex with men. Jack Donovan does not want to have a wife and raise a functional family. So Jack Donovan, although a very, very good writer, he and I have actually had very productive conversations on certain topics. Very similar to the puppet master mother, having a surface level understanding that is their form of highly infused biased logic as to how things work. You know, Jack Donovan has certainly observed dynamics and has a lot to sort of introduce somebody to. But I think there's a limit that we understand when it comes to somebody like Jack Donovan that exists right from the first step. So if you're somebody who follows Jack Donovan and reads his stuff, I would say, listen, if you get something out of it, continue to do so. But I would also offer that we understand there's a limit to where this goes, and I would keep everything in that sort of perspective as I took that in. Right. So that was as nice as I could possibly be. Terrytown Vibe, my man Magoo says, turning these boys into son husbands. I like that. Oscar says, but I want to talk about my feelings. So, you know, it's funny. We laugh, but if any of you guys are members of the Warrior Project, my membership site, one of my programs is the bucket model. And the bucket model is the framework for how a man deals with stress, anxiety, trauma. And I talk about it in terms of units of stress. And I use this analogy of the bucket. And I say there's a time where the bucket overflows and it needs to be emptied because it becomes dysfunctional. And there are times like I've cried like a baby as an adult. You know, I remember being at the wake of one of my students years ago, who he was 18 years old and died in a car accident in his first year of college. I could not contain myself at his wake, you know, and it took me a while to be able to compose myself, to be able to even, you know, speak at the wake and represent what I wanted his legacy. Like I was just done, you know, and I needed to get that out. So it's often, you know, a lot of guys that talk like me while looking like me, you know, you could probably add a little bit there. There's a lot of times we're easily dismissed because they presume that we're going to be this hyper masculine, you know, all men that cry are pussies. And, you know, it's like, well, no, it's like talking about your feelings. If I'm talking about, you know, my identity as a warrior, you know, training to put myself in harm's way to protect my family, to dedicate my life to becoming more formidable. So not only should that situation arise, I could step up and do my job, but also I create the model for the younger warriors who are coming. Like every time I talk about that, I'm talking about my feelings, right? So addressing, you know, our identity's abstract relationship with our life as we see it, you know, all of that falls under the category of talking about our feelings. Now, obviously, where the line of function gets crossed into dysfunction is when people would rather talk about their feelings than do their job. All right. When people would rather, you know, calm the sea than fix the boat, you know, to use one of my old sayings. So, you know, talking about one's feelings, like there is a way to do that in a masculine way. There's a way to do that and preserve your function as a man. You know, if you are somebody who cannot functionally maintain their responsibilities as a husband and as a father and as a brother because of this sensitivity and this constant need for catharsis, or some sort of consoling or recharge. It's like, yes, you should be mocked, not because you're acting effeminately, by the way. It's because you're acting dysfunctionally. And the thing is, if there is a battle, and I'm going to be, somewhat, hyperbolic and simple in my analogy here. If there is a battle and you are too overwhelmed to help your brothers fight in the battle, you should be mocked, not because you're acting like a woman, but it's because you have to go with the children and the women. That's the criticism. Now, the women are over there taking care of the kids. It's not like you're suddenly in charge of taking care of the kids like a woman. Like, no, it's just that you have to go there because you can't be here. So that's why that type of behavior is mocked. It's not that, you're being. Now, obviously, there's something to the difference in men and women when it comes to a catharsis and being expressive and being in touch with, being a level of empathy, and we see the value of that when it comes to women being mothers. Like, women are designed to take care of children. When taking care of that child, without those motherly, bonds and all the systems in her body that support those bonds, like, would be fucking torture. It's like they will literally torture people by playing clips of screaming babies. A mother will be able to engage that. Like, listen, I got 4 kids. My wife with the kids, she was it didn't make any sense to me. She'd be having a conversation with the baby, like fussing or crying even, and she was completely normal. And I'm sitting there like, holy fuck, like the screams are like getting into my fucking soul, because I am not designed to deal with that, whereas she is. So obviously we're broad brushing and oversimplifying to the point of misrepresenting if we're saying men and women feel things the same, but when a man is so sensitive and so fragile that he can't do his job, it's not that you're acting like a woman. It's that when shit hits the fan, you have to go with the women. And now you become a 200-pound baby that we have to protect. That's why the mocking is there, right? What's up, Willie? All right, Cultivate Power. My man Darryl says, after I get some Monster, I got a loud puppet master at my gym. Her kid spends most of his energy in class with split attention between his mother and the coaches. It is slowing his progress tremendously. It absolutely is. When I talk about the idea of a reachable rung, and Darryl, I would offer this for you when dealing with this mother. Oftentimes, 20 years owning a school, the parents are usually the most, I'll say it nicely, most challenging dynamic, in a school owner's job. I would offer the model of the reachable rung. Now, when I describe the reachable rung to somebody, I say, listen, you need to continue progressing. But in order to continue progressing, and this isn't anything, and you know this, Darryl, but for the people that are listening, Darryl's done some work with me before, like he's been around. In order to continue that progress, movement being mandatory, because we need to go, we need to move, we need to do something. If we can't reach what our pace dictates or expects us to reach, it is then advisable to create a reachable rung. Now, the thing with the reachable rung, now the martial arts school here would be the reachable rung for a parent. They want their child to have these certain traits, these benefits from being, from partaking, from being in the environment and partaking in these classes. And these benefits, they don't know how to install them themselves, because they can't, right? A parent can't, offer a community of people from different families who are joining together, overlapped and original. Like it's not in the nature of what those dynamics are. But what they do is they say, I'm going to bring the child here. They've prepped their child. in these benefits as much as they can, and now it's time for the child to go and learn at a different place. And that next rung, or in some parents' case, the reachable rung, becomes the martial arts school. Well, in the reachable rung model, what is accepted after we create the reachable rung and we grab the reachable rung in order to continue to climb, but we also know that we're going to have to let go of the rung we were holding prior to that. So the reachable rung just as much keeps us from holding the rungs we've already climbed as it does give us a rung ahead of us to continue the climb. Right. So that puppet master, dynamic with the parent. Now, logistically, yeah, you could. I've always, been very, very. My relationship with the parents has always been very straightforward, as you guys can imagine. So there's times like I'll go in and say like, all right, parents, nobody's talking today. Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't like, because I'm not doing it selfishly, emotionally. Like it's a functional choice and decision I'm making based on what we're all here for. So there's never any, I'm in a bad mood, so everyone shut up type. Like I wouldn't disrespect the relationship by acting like that. But I also, have it within my rights to say there's no talking. Now, more functionally, sure, I'll have parents talk low to each other, but they will not address the children while the child's in class. They certainly will not look to coach their child. Like if the child is doing some sort of live drill or sparring with another child, creating a wedge in between those teammates, it's like little Johnny and little Billy are teammates, but little Johnny's mom is screaming, or dad, is screaming to little Johnny, take him down, smash him, he's getting tired, oh, that hurt him, like little Billy is going to be here tomorrow and then look at little Johnny's mom like, you're a fucking asshole, or when it comes to little Johnny needing little Billy to train the next day, little Billy's going to go, fuck you, because the puppet master, the mother, and dads fall in this category all the time too, but specifically, the dynamic of somebody staying connected while the child's supposed to be off of that rung and on this one, that's something that's very, very common in martial arts schools. So, yeah, logistically, you could say there's no talking, or better yet, you could have them not be in the room. Some schools have the ability to create some sort of a glass, or like my kids take acting and acting classes and dance classes. And the place I bring them to do that, you're not in any of the rooms, but what they have are monitors, right? So there's a waiting area and there's a monitor of the class going on, and there's no sound, but I've seen schools that put sound on. There's different ways to do this. Now, understand, like, yeah, as you scale up, it's hard to train parents. But if you have a culture, it's easy to scale that culture up because the new parents will follow what the rest of the parents are doing. But you want to sort of just put the turbo button on this process. You just get them out of the room. You put up a monitor, or not. Just tell them, yeah, you could watch from the other room through the window, or you could just hang out in the waiting room and your kid will be out when they're done with class, and that's that. And maybe if you're doing that, have a sort of, maybe maybe it's quarterly or monthly even, where the parents will come in and observe the class because it's some sort of ritual that you're doing just to sort of satisfy that desire. Because like, I get it, I get it. So hope that makes sense, brother. What's up, Sean? So 12 Pack says they created incels. I don't know specifically who you're referring to. Maybe those overbearing mothers. Give me some feedback, because I've been talking for a bit, so I don't want to have an inaccurate take on that. Right? I got another question from a former student, or student parent actually, that was asking on the topic of mothers and sons and whatnot, when a parent should, like, what's the value in fighting for sole custody, after a separation or divorce. And I'm the first one, and I've told, men this for many, many years prior to even being married or having children myself. If it's a baby, the baby needs to be with the mother primarily. You are not going to be able to mother the child like the mother can. Now, let me maybe take a step back and preface this all by saying this is how fucked up all of this is. When you're not married to the mother of your kids, this is where shit gets complicated. But what I would say is, what a lot of men of young children find themselves fighting for is, well, even if they understand that a baby, or certainly a newborn, should be with the mother, not with the father, they also understand that any sort of leeway that they give right now is not going to be, that ground is not going to be regained when the child's older and now would benefit more from the being around the dad. So it's almost like you'll find parents, or dads specifically, that are stuck between two fucked up decisions of, they're going to argue for as much custody as they can get, knowing that at least they'll have it for when the child will actually, need it and benefit the most from it, But what that winds up being is a lot of, dads taking care of newborn babies like every other weekend, or like whatever the fucking arrangement is. And like, I get it, because you do want to expose yourself to the child. But if we're talking about taking care of the child in the best way possible, it's like, the kid doesn't need you, dad, biologically, functionally in their development, but I get it. But now moving forward, there's a certain point where it's like, yeah, you should have shared custody, and that means that the kids are going to spend time around you half the time. The kids are going to spend time around their mother half the time. But that's only if you want to be a father that's worth a shit, the dad who's like, I'm going for full custody. Like, why the fuck are you doing that? Is your kid's mother a fucking crackhead? Is she a whore? Is she like so dysfunctional that you think the children are in danger? It's like, okay, then yeah, you do whatever you can to keep your kids out of harm's way. But to think that somehow your love and dedication to your kids is more pronounced, or more, you're committing at a higher level if you get them all the time. Well, is it about you, or is it about the kids? Because the kids need to be around their mom. And obviously, I would reverse this completely when talking to a mother about the father. There was a lady I was speaking to once, some years back. She was on the cusp of getting divorced to her husband, and she was interested in trying to get as much money as she could from him, and said, I'm going to get sole custody. And, and basically the only thing that the guy did wrong was he was in the unsuccessful marriage with her. The guy wasn't a piece of shit. He wasn't cheating on her. She wasn't cheating on him. It's just that the marriage didn't work out. They turned into two offset individuals who never had the formulas to develop together, and they wound up just two people living in the same house. So they got divorced, and, the mother got all this money from the husband, and like the annuity, all that fucking pension, all that shit. Which, like, the mother made as much money as the fucking dad did. They both worked, but this is like a thing. I get it. That's not really where I want to hang my hat. It's not the hill I'm going to die on, as annoyed as I was, at the time. Because my whole thing is, if the dad's a functional dad, why wouldn't he support his daughter financially? Like, even though you guys are divorced, like what he's just going to suddenly not love his daughter and not pay for the school, not like I don't know, like what's the thing? And it's not even that she just wanted to preserve what it is that he was supporting. It's like, no, she wanted his shit. Totally different dynamic. Anyway, but the other part of it is, she was going to keep her kid, this, in this example, a daughter, from being around the dad as much as the daughter wanted to be around the dad. And I didn't understand the purpose of that. One of the things that parents do very, very poorly, and I guess it's just inherent in this dysfunctional dynamic most of the time when parents are separating, or divorcing shortly thereafter, is they have this idea to sort of validate what they're doing. And a lot of times that manifests in criticizing, the other partner. And there's something to be said for people just not being functionally compatible. Now, I say that with an asterisk because I am not in any way implying that it should be taken lightly that two people have children and that, hey, if you guys aren't getting along, you just go your separate ways and you'll co-parent. And, that's the phrase that people use nowadays. And like, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, if you love your child, you do everything to make sure your marriage works. I would say ideally, and this is counterintuitive to a lot of people, parents, husband and wife should be dedicated to each other before they actually develop and manifest the dynamic with their children. That is a more functional priority of relationships, because if the husband and wife are solid, the kids therefore are going to benefit from that inherent functional level of relationship in the parents. So when the wife does everything in her power to get along with the husband, and the husband, vice versa, does everything in his power to get along with the wife, the kids inherently benefit from that. But when you'll see a lot of parents go wrong because they prioritize the children over their partner, and they wind up sabotaging their ability to provide for their children because they don't sustain the relationship with the partner that provides the best environment for the children to grow up in the first place. So as the children get older, joint custody, because the boys need to have masculinity modeled and the girls need to have it displayed so that they understand and develop a standard that's functional and what they expect the men in their life to be moving forward. If you're a dad and you're a pussy, like your daughter's probably going to look at men like they're pussies, and that's not helping her as she gets older. And the same thing with the men. The man's a mouse and is basically spoken to like he's a piece of shit by the mother. It's like the boys are going to find relationships where the women treat them like that also. And it's hard to change those rituals, once these boys grow up dysfunctionally. So I hope that made sense. Right. So says, LOL, Mr. Mom ass motherfucker. I cringe at these dudes who think they should change diapers and breastfeed with the fake boob on. Well, and it's funny because I would say the overwhelming majority of people know that when a man is putting on a prosthetic boob to feed the baby, like if there is a line, like that is on the other side of it. I mean, it was literally, I think, like in one of those Meet the Parents movies, because it's a joke, right? And by the way, I get it. Like, who fucking knows 10 years from now? Like, I don't fucking know. I can't wait. And mark my words, I'm going to be the first one, hopefully, that puts this out there. If there isn't a change in the trajectory of this dysfunctional behavior when it comes to gender ideology, I guarantee there are going to be men who want to be women, who have fake boobs, and they wind up having some milk delivery mechanism installed in their bodies in order to be, I guarantee it's going to happen, right? And there's going to be plenty of people that can make money on it. So as soon as somebody wants it, believe me, the supply will be there. That's how batshit crazy we've gotten, right? So, but the thing is, even though that's a line that we know, at least at this point, this point of the Overton Windows movement, we know that that's ridiculous. There is still something to pointing out to men like, listen, I have 4 kids. I haven't changed 6 diapers, for my kids, like in total, 6 times. It's because something was going on. My wife couldn't do it. Wife's at the store, I'm with the baby, and it's like the baby shits itself. And now it's like, fuck. Immediately, what do if you're a dad? You change the diaper. No, you don't. You call the mom and you ask her, how long till you're home? Because you're trying to decide what's the appropriate length of time that this baby can have a shitty diaper. And if it's too long, it's like, fuck, so, you do that. But the whole thing is, she's got reps. We have a lifestyle where I'm working, she's home with the children. Like, why would I have to? Because it should be a functional thing. Like, baby has a shitty diaper, needs to be changed. Yeah, you got to do it. But if it's not functional, like, there's no, you're not parenting in a functional way that it's going to lend itself to a better relationship with your child, or a more functional, growth of the child. Like, that's all fucking nonsense. Like, no, let the wife fucking change the diaper. Let the wife breastfeed the baby. The wife can't breastfeed. Okay, at least let the wife be the one who feeds the baby. Let that be a motherly thing, right? Because if you have a kid who only his dad, a baby who only the dad changes the diaper and feeds the baby, like, that kid's missing out. That kid's missing out on a relationship with the mother that's going to sort of last a lifetime. That's going to develop into what that child is going to relate to his mother as boy or girl, as they get older. Like, you're fucking up. Let the mother be a mother. Let her do the mothering, right? The father, yeah, he's got to do the fathering, right? And in the beginning, that's basically getting the mother pregnant. After that, it's making sure that the mother, while she takes care of the baby, is safe. She's provided for. She has everything she needs, right? She has a reprieve where functional. Like listen, like, my oldest kid, my son, is 15. Let's say that he was a girl, and I had a daughter, a 15-year-old daughter. And let's say my wife got pregnant again. My daughter would be taking care of the baby more than I would after the baby was born, because it is incredible training for her as she moves forward. Now, here's the thing, like, whoever's not pissed off yet, I don't think I was too controversial today, but it's like, yeah, I tell my sons on a regular basis, my job is to train you to be the best husband, father, and brother you can be. I tell my daughter, my job is to help train you become the best wife, mother, and sister you could be. Now, when people are, they get into all this shit about, well, not all women can have kids. Not all, you might not find the right person. Like, okay. Fucking Shaquille O'Neal could have fucking been an Uber driver. Would have been an honest living. Okay. But you know what? If we had to ask, which way was he going to really fulfill his potential, probably wasn't driving a fucking Uber. It was probably playing basketball, So when I look at women, it's like, yeah, all right, don't have kids, because there's a thing where it's like, these women that don't want to have kids and want to kill their babies when they get pregnant and stuff, like, how willing should we be to argue that they should be having children? Like, I'm not bound by any sort of dogmatic position where I have to damn things, in some sort of absolute way. Like, I'm a very pragmatic thinker. And it's like, listen, there's my tribe, there's your tribe. Like, if you are dysfunctional and you don't want to have kids, I can't say that I'm against that, right? So obviously there's a point where, I should say it's a multivariate dilemma, right? That doesn't solve any problem without creating other ones at the same time, and I get that. But if we don't have this sort of model that we're moving toward, how do we ensure that we maintain function as we enjoy it today to begin with? By the way, everything that we have right now came from a set of formulas. Like, people acted a certain way, and this is why we have what we have now. If you're going to say that I'm going to change this up and do something completely different, okay, that's fine. Do what you want to do. Do what you think's best. But don't tell me that we're going to have the same outcome moving forward, because you're basically just, you're playing a guessing game. All right. And I'm a big fan of the natural formulas. All right, folks, that was fun. We hit a lot of different topics. I appreciate you guys. You guys know masterchim.com. Make sure you're getting the emails. Oh, I just saw this. Oh, fucking awesome. All right, Wade, you get credit for that. When the men get the prosthetic, milk delivery devices installed surgically, mammary glands. We just did that. That's awesome. I don't know if we just help society or help ruin it. Either way, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I had a good time. MasterChim.com. You know that. All the links are down in the description. If you have only commented on the chat, do me a favor, like the actual video, write a comment on the actual video. You know how that works. Share the video if there's something you like. I'm going to take a couple of clips from this and try to make some of those little bite-sized, vids for social media, and that'll be up probably in a couple of days. But I'm here every Wednesday, noon Eastern Standard Time. Watch it wherever you're watching it now. I'll be here next week. I appreciate you all, and as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.